This podcast is brought to you by the Association for Coaching, the world's leading international professional body which is advancing coaching in business and society worldwide. My name is Maxine Bell, and I am delighted to introduce you to a new series, A Day in the Life of. These podcast episodes will be released between our longer themed podcast series that you are already used to. We've been interviewing coaches for a while now under the theme A Day in the Life of for our LinkedIn newsletter, and they were so well received we wanted to offer them to a broader audience. The interviews are with real, everyday coaches across the globe from all walks of life who join me to honestly and bravely share their journeys into coaching, how they coach and run their business, what they love and what their challenges are, as well as how they integrate self-care into their practice. It's a real honour to get a sneak peek into their lives, and we hope that listening to their stories will inspire, encourage and assist you, whatever stage of your coaching journey you are on. Welcome back to our Day in the Life series, and today I have with me Sally Twisleton. Welcome, Sally.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Now, you've only been a coach, I think, since April 2024, is that right?
Yeah, so a full-time coach. I did my training a few years ago, but yes, I've recently left industry to focus on coaching full-time.
Yeah, so it's very brave of you because it's only a few months in as a full-time coach. So thank you for joining us. Would you like to share with the listeners a bit more about your coaching practice and your journey into coaching?
Yeah, happy to. I'm an engineer by initial training, so I did my mechanical engineering degree back in 2005 and graduated. Then promptly went into industry, so I went and worked in the aerospace industry at Rolls-Royce. I worked there for kind of 18 years and did a whole range of different roles. And through those roles and leading teams and things, I was introduced to coaching, so the idea of being a leader who coaches. I also did quite a lot of lean and business improvement kind of activities, and big foundation of lean is coaching and developing people. So yeah, I learned about Grow to start with and was like, oh, okay, there's this process to help people think. That's great. And then I also got introduced a bit later on to the work of Nancy Klein. And I think that was where I really went, oh, this coaching thing's really interesting because it's not just a process. In fact, you don't necessarily need a process. It's about listening intently to people and really helping spark their thinking. And that got me really excited. I was like, oh, this is really cool. There's a sort of magic to help people think through whatever challenges that they've got. And so I got a little bit more deeper into it, and in around 2000, I think it was, just around the pandemic, did my master's in coaching at Sheffield Hallam because I wanted to really get in depth with coaching and think about how that reflected itself in my leadership practice at Rolls-Royce. And then as you go through the training, obviously because you're having lots of coaching as part of your practice and other people's practice, you start to go, oh, maybe this is something that I want to do more of and perhaps have it as a business one day. Over the years since then, I've been thinking about it more and using the skills that I learned in my master's at work. So coaching my team, coaching individuals at Rolls-Royce, facilitating teams, doing improvements workshops and things through the roles that I had. And then more recently, the opportunity to take severance came up. So I decided to jump for it and start my own business. So I had the business in the background for a few years, but the idea was that I'd work 4 days a week in industry and 1 day a week on my business, and it didn't work out. The ability to actually build a business 1 day a week just wasn't practical for me. So yeah, I took the big plunge back in April and now I'm doing it full time, which is exciting, but comes with lots of challenges as well, but it's nice to be giving it a good go.
Yeah, because one of the things when I first met you was you have a real passion for people, and in fact, listeners can't see it, but behind you there's an image, and I think it says, what did it say, people power?
Yeah, it says people power actually works when we stick together. So it's about people power being great, but also about the idea of community and driving change through people coming together. Yeah,
you seem really passionate about just people and people improving and personal development and all those kind of things when we were talking. So since you moved from doing it at work with your teams and now you're doing it as an individual in a business, how has it changed for you, and what's your coaching practice look like as a full-time coach?
So I think one of the reflections of when you're coaching a team, there's still an element of accountability for delivery. I've done quite a lot of reflection on what it is to be a leader who coaches versus a coach, because I think to coach your team is hard, partly because it's very difficult for you to fully let go of that accountability, because at the end of the day, your team have got to deliver and you've got to be there to help them do that. And you're in a system, right, that's all about delivery and directive and hierarchy and get on and get it done. So I think I found coming out of that system into a world where you are contracting with an individual to just focus on their thinking without any accountability to deliver. You're here as a coach, you're responsible for process, you're responsible for supporting that thinker, but you're not actually responsible for the outcomes. And that I found very freeing, actually. Not because you take the responsibility away, because I still think as a coach you are responsible for an awful lot of things, but just because that system around you is removed. And I've actually found my confidence in my coaching has increased as well, which I found quite curious, actually, and my facilitating. So coming out of a system into my own autonomy, complete autonomy, is a bit scary, but equally comes with freedom of choice. Like I can choose to work how I want to work and who I want to work with to a degree. Obviously, whilst you're starting your business up, you don't quite have that same choice as you might if you had a huge queue of people. But yeah, I found myself more assured. I think the work that I've done over the years in business alongside my day job has really allowed me to hone my skills and then have a sort of fresh new sense of confidence coming out into the wider world, if you like, and applying my skills and knowledge.
Do you feel that you're more authentic now? You can be more authentic because you've got that freedom?
I think so. I've not really thought of it like that before, but yeah, I think so. I found I'm much more reflective about who I want to be and how I want to show up. And I think part of that is because when you are starting to create your business, you want to think about what values you want to put forward as your business. And when you want to do your marketing, you think about what it is you want to say and what messages do you want to put out in the world. And so that causes a bit of introspection, or it has done for me anyway, in as much as who am I, what do I stand for, what are my values, and what are my values for me rather than me as a leader in industry, me as a coach, helping engineers and engineering leaders to be more efficient, effective, thoughtful, heart-led. All of the good things that I imagine many coaches will resonate with. It really makes you think about what matters to you and how you want to show up. And I think the other thing I've been doing recently is thinking a bit about manifesting. So I smile because I know that's sometimes a bit controversial, but I've created a bit of a vision board. You can't see it on the wall here, but doing that's been quite helpful because it's made me think about, well, what's really important to me? What kind of life do I want to lead? And what aspects of that do I want to pull out in my business and the way that I coach and the way that I show up and the kind of people that I want to work with? So yeah, I think it has made me really reflect on who I am and what I want out of my job, my work, if you like, and how I want to help others.
And I think what you've just said as well is a great piece of advice for other new coaches out there to think about all those things you've just said. And often in our other podcasts, many of the guests have said that finding out what your values are and who you are as a coach is an important part of that journey. What do you think is your key why you do coaching?
I do it because I like helping people, I think. As you kind of alluded to earlier, I'm very committed to improvement and development. So all the jobs that I did in industry had an element of improvement or continuous improvement or strategy or going from A to B in them. And I think through the evolution of myself, it went from improving things to helping people improve. And I think those are the two things. Like I genuinely realised I was getting a bit tired with doing things to make processes better or doing things to make business more efficient and make more money, or if you like, all the way through to actually, how do I just help people overcome their struggles, overcome their challenges, think about themselves and how they want to show up and how they can be more effective and hopefully happier in the way that they work, really. I think that's what it's about.
And would you advise the way that you did it in that you continued to work for a while and then build your business up in the background? You mentioned the 1 day a week became a struggle. Is that good advice? Because often that financial transition is one of the challenges many coaches face, isn't it?
I think I'd advise anyone trying it. For me, I found it difficult, but I know some people have managed to do that very successfully. I think it was a little dependent on the individual. I'm quite an all or nothing person. I know that about myself. I like to throw myself fully into what I'm doing. So the idea of doing 4 days of day job in inverted commas and then 1 day of coaching just didn't work. And also because part of my practice I want to do facilitating. Again, it was just a little bit too limited in terms of actually being able to offer somebody a day's facilitating, it can only be on a Friday and it can only be when I can fit it in here and there. And there's also that tipping point of the amount of effort you need to put into marketing and networking and building up a customer base versus actually doing the work. So maybe if I were to have my time again, I would focus entirely on the marketing on that one day a week. And then when I got a tipping point, jump out and go and do it. But I do know some people have done it really successfully. So I think it depends very much on financial circumstances, what kind of person you are. I remember talking to somebody when I was thinking about leaving who said they straddled both really effectively and found it coaching practice alongside their day job was wonderful. So I think it just depends, really. It's not a very, I don't know if that's a very helpful answer.
It is, I think. It shows, one, that your self-awareness is an important part of that process of what works for me. You said you're all enough, think you know that about yourself, so therefore for you that didn't work, but whereas somebody else it worked really well. So I just think it's about what you've indicated is finding out what works for you and what's possible for you, both financially but also personally. So no, I think that's a great answer. It's helpful. Thank you.
There is an element of, had I not been in a position to take a severance package, I would have had to have delayed doing this longer, I think, or gone and taken a job as a coach in a business, I think. So for me, it was never going to be possible to, or I'm not brave enough, whichever way you want to phrase it, to just jump. Again, that's about risk threshold, isn't it? And about maybe if you have a partner to support you whilst you go through that transition. Yeah, horses for courses, I suppose.
I think the reality is that most coaches start off having to do more than just coaching, I think, from our conversations. And this is part of the reason for having these conversations in a way, is for people to share that reality they might have coached. So I think that is part of the reality of it anyway. Yeah, that's true. Now, you mentioned that you already have a kind of focus on your coaching practice, don't you? A bit of a niche already, which is around coaching engineers.
Yeah, that's right.
Has that been helpful to have that kind of niche right from the start, to know what direction you were going in?
I think so, yes. Because I think it doesn't stop you from working with other people, but it does give you a focus for your audience, who you're talking to, kind of events that you might go to, people that you network with. So I work with leaders and teams in engineering, and I provide coaching, facilitation, and a little bit of training and leadership development. And then I'm around inclusion, collaboration, and promoting growth. One of the things I'm finding, or a few of the things I'm finding, is being able to be articulate enough with who you are working with that people can go, oh, Sally does this, I can get her to talk to X, Y, and Z in my network is helpful. It also then, so I'm going to a few conferences this year. So I'm going to go to the Advanced Engineering Conference. I'm going to go to the Women in Science and Engineering Conference. There's a few conferences. Because I have a niche, I can target those events and go and network with people in their space and just go and chat to them about what they're seeing in their industry. And then that, for me, is a nice way to enter the system and talk about myself without going, hello, I'm a coach, look at me, come and talk to me. It's for me, it's a more natural way in, is just go and talk about engineering. And I think the other bit is, from my perspective, it gives me a bit more of extra credibility because I've been an engineering leader in industry for nearly 20 years and can be a shorthand a little bit with who you coach, in as much as you really understand people's context and you've often been through some of the challenges that they've been through. Not to say that my coaching gives advice, but it just is, there's maybe a deeper level of empathy or a shorthand between you and your coachee. And also doing the facilitating piece, it's quite helpful if you know a bit about what they're talking about, not necessarily the technology, but just the context again. So I've found it helpful. And also then you have a network, like having worked in industry for that long. I know quite a few people who have gone on to different companies, so I can use that network to go and say, oh, have you got any work you need to do with your leadership teams? Are you having an away day? Do you want to start thinking about developing your technical specialists to have better people skills? Those hooks in that are questions that would have relevance in your industry.
There's some really great advice in that about going to things like industry shows and things like that, and really using that as a networking and in a kind of, more relaxed way. I was also thinking as well that often when we change career, when we come from, say, working in corporate into coaching or whatever our previous career was, people can often try really hard to completely reinvent the wheel. What you've just hinted at there is actually what you can do is use your previous experience to build your coaching practice.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I took quite a lot of advice and talked to quite a lot of people before leaving. And some of the advice I got was that might be what you do to start with, but it might not have to be what you do forever. So I'm talking quite a lot about women in engineering because I did my master's research into the role of coaching and mentoring in supporting more gender balance at senior leadership level in engineering. So I'm doing quite a lot of talking about that in my marketing and various different things. And although there's an awful lot more to me than just a woman engineer who does coaching, that's an obvious conversation to be having at the moment. And I think it's a place that I've got a good degree of interest, I've got experience, and I can talk about and share about and offer solutions. But it's not what I want to do forever, I don't think. But it's a good in, and it helps me build up a reputation and opportunities to go and do things. And it can be one of the strings to my bow of careers, if you like, or bow of offerings.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're quite involved in your own personal development, so you're not being too attached to having it to be one particular way forever, that this is where I'm at now, this is what works for me now, and open to other opportunities.
Yeah, the world's moving so fast, isn't it? The opportunities, I think, are just going to change more and more, and I think it's being open to that and curious about what bits of the practice are giving you lots of energy and where might you want to go from there. So I've my little manifesting board that I talked about. I've put pictures of like wind turbines and helping support industry that's more environmental, be an area I'd like to try and get into, and then who knows where that might go. I think it's being open to flex and change with the opportunities that you're presented with and the direction that the world's going as well.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned earlier on about marketing, and I've seen you post on LinkedIn, and I've been quite impressed with what you post and how regularly you post. You suggested that's been one of your challenges or one of the things that you've reflected on. Is that the case, or do you find marketing easy?
Oh no, I don't find it easy at all. I think I underestimated as well how much you've got to do to build up that kind of engagement. So yeah, at the moment, I'm experimenting with posting 5 times a week, which is quite a bit. But what I do is I batch it all up on a Sunday. So I'll usually spend maybe 90 minutes on a Sunday writing content and creating graphics and that kind of thing. And then I'll schedule them to post through the week. So that's all done, and then I'd have to worry about it in the week. I also have a list of ideas, so I'll sit down periodically and make a big old list of ideas so that I've got a hopper. So I've processed in a true engineering way. I've created a process for it. And I try to generally offer content that I think is useful or reflections, and I've picked 5 broad topics to talk about, so there's a bit of consistency within the variety. So I tend to talk about coaching, facilitation, inclusion, collaboration and leadership, generally all in the context of engineering. So having those things that I want to be known for and then having a consistent message. Yeah, I've been at it probably about 6 months now, and mostly I keep having ideas, so I shall keep going at it. My intent is when the business picks up to a nice sustainable level, I shall post less frequently. But so that's the LinkedIn side of things. And then there's the kind of going to events and talking to people. That's a big stretch for me. I'm quite an introverted person, so going to big trade events and talking to people I find quite hard work, quite draining. But actually there's nothing like going and meeting people in person and saying hello and talking about whatever topic it is related to your coaching that you're interested in. And I've met some great people and got a few opportunities from doing that. Uncomfortable as it is, I shall continue doing it. Yeah. And then I think the third bit of the marketing that I'm doing is using my network. So each week, although a bit less frequently at the moment, I used to write to 10 people in my network and just say, hello, here I am, I'm doing this now. Can we just have a chat to just talk about what you're noticing in industry and where I might be able to add some value or be useful? So it's not a sales call, it's just let's catch up and have a bit of a conversation. And I found that to be good. People have been incredibly kind with and generous with their time. And often I will ask them to then recommend a couple of other people to talk to. So you just grow your network that way. So those are the 3 main approaches to marketing that I've taken. We'll see where we go. I suppose the other thing to mention is associate work. So I've taken on a bit of associate work as well, which I'm enjoying. The first associate work I did was brilliant. The associate work that I'm doing at the moment is a bit less coaching focused. It's more about program management. But again, that uses my skills and that pays the bills so that I can keep marketing my business. So I think to your point you made earlier, that sometimes we do stuff that isn't coaching to help us get to the point where we can do more coaching.
And that's just the reality of most coaches' life. This sort of some shiny six-figure thing that sometimes gets put out on social media is very rare. I think extremely rare. And I haven't met a coach yet that's happened to quickly. I think the marketing tips you've just given are really helpful. And I know that many other coaches say the networking is a very huge part of building a coaching business, putting yourself out there. So well done.
Thank you.
On that bit. I was also thinking, as a coach and as a female engineer, you're in quite a strong position, because I always admire women that go into careers like engineering. It's not been an easy journey for you, imagine. So to have your coaching skills and your experience of that, and your being able to talk on inclusion in a very real way, I think is a powerful thing to be able to do, and a gift for the industry itself as well, I hope.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my hope, is that I can bring some different perspectives, or at least some reflection on some elements of difference, which is definitely needed. The change in percentage of women in engineering over the years has been very slow. So it is on the up, but it is slow. And actually, since last year, it's gone down a tiny little bit. And that's been broadly driven by mid-career women. So women like myself choosing to lead the industry. So one of the things I'm interested in at the moment is, how do we stem that flow, and how do we use coaching and mentoring to address some of that? So how do we think about, in industry, how do we coach women to manage the challenges? Like, I'm very much a advocate of not changing the woman. I think it's the environment that we've got to change. There's no question about it. But equally, the environment's going to take a while to change. So we need to support women to navigate the environment in the short term. So thinking about what we can do to coach, to mentor, and to sponsor women in industry to hit those senior roles, or just to keep forging forward with their career despite lots of challenges, is really important. And things about role modelling, and then the procedural stuff that we do in companies around promotion, recruitment, maternity practices, other caring practices, and support for women who have to take on those kind of roles is really important. So that's something that I'm doing a bit of speaking on at the moment, to try and just share some messages and drive some change, really.
Thank you for saying that. We did a series on coaching women last year with the podcast. One of the people we interviewed was Geraldine Gallagher, who's wrote a whole book about It's Not the Woman, It's the System, really. Yeah, completely. And yeah, but your particular focus on engineering and science, I think, is so important. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. What other challenges have you had on your journey setting up your own business and coaching?
I think probably there's a couple. So I think the first one is, you just have to do everything. So having come from a big corporate, like, we do have to do quite a bit of things. If your IT breaks, you ring up the IT help desk and they help you out, or they tell you you're going to use this computer and you're going to use this printer, and these are the bits of software that you're going to use. So you don't have to make any of those choices. But when you set up on your own, all the decisions are yours. So all the decisions about what equipment you buy, what apps you choose to use, what software you use for your accounting, whether you have an accountant or not. If you want to do marketing, what tools do you use for that? How do you record a video and put it on LinkedIn or Instagram, or all of that? You've just got to work it out. And a bit of me loves that, because I love learning and I love variety. And a bit of me is like, yeah, that's brilliant, I'm learning so much. But also it takes quite a lot of energy. And most coaches don't go into coaching businesses because they love marketing, or love software development, or love IT or finance, or all of the things that come with running a business. So that's a bit double-edged. It's fun because there's so much variety, but it's a bit challenging because you can't be an expert in them all. And so some of the time you feel like you're muddling along a little bit. But there is some actually quite good resources. So I've signed up to an organisation called Enterprise Nation, and they do really good lunch and learns and lots of resources in terms of how to set up and run your own business. So that's been something that's been quite helpful. I've also recently applied for a small business grant through my local authority as well. There's lots of resources out there to help, which is helpful. And then I think the other one is just a more motivational, personal energy one. So someone described running your own business as a roller coaster when I was setting out, and they're absolutely right. Some days I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be the most successful business. It's going to be brilliant. I'm going to have loads of clients. I'm going to make loads of money, help loads of people. It's going to be incredible. I don't know how I'm going to cope when I get all this work. And then some days I'm like, oh, it's never going to work. I'm never going to get any work. How am I going to cope? Why have I left? I don't often think why have I left. But there's those kind of highs of, oh, it's going to be great, and lows of, oh gosh, I've got to make this work because I don't get paid unless I find the work. So I think it's managing those highs and lows. And when was it? Late August. So August is a very quiet time for coaching and anything to do with working with companies because everyone's on holiday. So very few people have time to speak to you and all that kind of thing. And I think it was the third week in August, I was like, oh gosh, what am I doing? I'm quite tired of talking to people about my business. I'm quite tired of posting and not getting any feedback at the moment. And I think it's in those moments you've really got to think about just keeping yourself motivated, keeping going with the routine, keeping at it, using your support network, whoever that might be, whether that's parents, family, friends, other coaches that you've trained with or know, to just keep you focused and keep you at it, because it's a long journey. I'd like to be doing this till into my retirement, so that's knows what the retirement age will be, but it's 20 years or so. So just keeping at it and building something sustainable doesn't come overnight, and managing those ups and downs that you get is really important. So I think that's something that even when I was in my really super busy corporate job, I'm having to look after myself more now than I did then.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's a question I was going to ask you later about that. But do you have supervision? Did you find that supportive?
Yeah, I have quite regular supervision, and it's just wonderful from that perspective. Yeah, just from all perspectives, to be honest. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about supervision. Either individual coachee, how can I talk about this person and challenge myself and just explore things that have maybe happened in a coaching session, all the way up to what should my practice look like and where do I want to focus and how do I want to approach it. Or I actually had some supervision last week, and we were exploring the role of being a coach and a consultant at the same time, and actually what that means in terms of when are you a coach and when are you a consultant and when are you a bit of both, and how do you manage that? Because being a consultant, the expectation is you tell people what to do and you help and you actively do stuff, and you're prized for your expertise and your knowledge and your ability to help transform a business. And being a coach, you're prized for your ability to help other people do that, and your patience and the space that you hold. And they're actually quite conflicting in some ways. So I was wrestling with that a little bit internally. So to being able to talk that through in supervision was incredibly powerful, and I think has helped me make sense of some of the consultancy work that I'm doing and not feel like by being a good consultant I'm being a bad coach.
Yeah, that's a really important point, but what a great space to have. That's what supervision's about, isn't it? Just having that space to explore all those different varieties and help you get through the tough moments and celebrate the highs as well, of course.
Yeah, that's it. And I was such a wonderful supervisor. We've such a bond of trust. I can bring the stuff that I'm a bit ashamed to talk about sometimes, which is really helpful.
Yeah, that's lovely. And what do you love about your day? What gets you up in the morning? What motivates you and gets you up, and what bits do you enjoy the most?
I love working. I love doing the coaching work. I love it when you've got clients who are just enthusiastic about what they're doing, and like your ability to just by listening and asking a few thoughtful questions or challenging their perspective, help them be even more effective or see the value in the world. I'm coaching somebody at the moment who is just incredible but doesn't recognise it. So I love working with people. What else do I love? I actually love the freedom of just being able to decide what it is that I want to do. I've been reading and studying quite a lot about psychological safety over the years, and so I've decided I'm going to try and create an offering around that for teams in engineering, because I think it's such an important aspect. And we can bring in lots of coaching models into that or frameworks. Anti-Client's Time to Think is a perfect example of how you might generate some kind of it talks about inclusion that then lead on to psychological safety, that then lead on to innovation, that then lead on to better products. So the ability to be thoughtful and creative and work on stuff that's meaningful, and then go and market a product that you're really excited about because you've put the thought and the research into it. So that bit I'm enjoying, and I have to manage myself because I have so many ideas that, I've got to take some of them through to reality and spend time on them. Yeah, and I also enjoy like just some space and time to think about and be reflective. I think some days are really mad busy, and there's not a lot of time for thinking or reflecting at all. But what I've tried to do in my week, in structuring my week, is create space for myself to be reflective and to think and to just take a step back and make sure in all that busyness that I am taking my business and the work that I'm doing in the direction that I really want, and not getting carried away off in a certain direction that isn't what I set out to do. Because I was talking to somebody the other day and we were saying we've left paid employment to do work that we want to do. So if we're starting doing work that we don't really want to do and it's not filling us up, or we're starting to dread it or any of that, we should try to avoid doing it, because otherwise you may as well go back and do a paid job using those skills. So I think that's the other thing, is building in time for myself and either reflection or exercise or getting out into nature or just going and having a cup of tea and meeting with some people and having a chat.
Yeah, that's so important. I was going to ask you about how you take care of yourself. You've already mentioned quite a few there, so that the supervision is one, and the taking breaks. So is there any other things that you do for yourself to take care of you as a coach?
Yeah, I try to walk about 7,000 steps each day, and I'll either listen to a podcast or just listen to nothing and just let my brain tick over. And I find I live in the countryside, so I can usually see some green space when I'm walking, so I'm very lucky from that perspective. I have an on-off meditation practice, which I do try to keep up with. I've lost a bit of rigour in it recently, so I need to reinvigorate that, but a bit of mindfulness or just reflective time or breathing time each day. As I mentioned, I'm quite introvert, so just having a bit of quiet time is very important for me. And then I think it's a bit obvious, but I really need to sleep. I'm not a person that can survive on a few hours sleep. I always get my 8 hours as much as possible. And have my routine of getting ready for bed, reading for half an hour, and I always read fiction and then going to sleep. So like having that routine, no matter what's happened in the day, just trying to have some kind of grounding practice where I'm relaxing and then having good quality sleep. Because I know if I don't do that, everything else goes to pot and I'm not grounded. So nothing groundbreaking, but just I know where my sort of boundaries are for looking after myself, and when I don't do some of these things, the wheels begin to fall off a little bit.
I think just being aware that you need to take care of yourself is a massive thing anyway, and particularly when you're starting a business, you can 24/7 get completely engrossed in it and let it take over your life, and before you know it, you're exhausted. So I think the fact that you even just got that awareness and you pay attention to it is so key. That's a key element of self-care, isn't it?
I think that's it, because like with my old job, I was very good at switching off. Like I'd finish in an evening and not think about it until the next morning, or I'd finish on a Thursday and not think about it and not look at my emails at all until Monday. And that is not how I am with my business. I like look at it all the time and think about it a lot. And I've built in the rigour of on a Saturday, I do absolutely nothing. And then on a Sunday afternoon, I'll usually do my LinkedIn post prep. And that sets me up really well for the week, but that's my choice. And then usually in the week, I'll take a little bit of time out. So I'm still working a normal sort of week, but I'm spacing it out a bit differently. Since I left, I haven't really had a block of time off, a few days here and there, but in a couple of weeks, I'm going away for a week. So we'll see how well I get on with not looking at any emails or anything on the old internet. So, but I can feel in myself that I'm ready for a break.
And I think that takes practice, getting into that practice of not looking at your emails and being stricter with yourself about. I know, so over time you learn to develop a system, which is a process I'm going through myself. That's why I'm saying that. You do literally have to put the do not disturb, and if you've got that on your gadgets. Yeah, it's very difficult because we just live with technology 24/7. So I think it's a challenge many people face, isn't it, in one form or another. It's one of those things to develop, I think.
I think it is.
It's good that you're taking a break as well, this early on in things as well, get into that habit of taking breaks. Yeah, thanks, Sally, for sharing that. You've been really honest, and it's been such a real conversation. It's been so helpful, I think, for the listeners out there. Lots of tips in that conversation as well, I think with even you not meaning to. Is there anything else that you'd like to share today before we go? Some pearls of wisdom, some tips, or even just a bit more about your coaching that you'd like to put out there?
That's a good question. I need words of wisdom. It's hard to think of words of wisdom on the spot. I suppose one of my words of wisdom is everybody's experience will be different in this. And my approach is just reflecting on what's right and what feels right and going into it with integrity. So don't be doing what you think you should be doing because you've seen somebody else do it. Or like with my LinkedIn posts, there's every post I want to feel a bit proud of. So not getting caught into just posting any old rubbish for the sake of putting something out there. So I think being thoughtful and intentional and reflective of who you are and what's right for you in the way that you go about things. I think the other thing is just having to be a bit brave. It's not easy, but it's fun, and pushing through some of the bits of discomfort or pushing through and doing new things that you might not normally do is how you grow. So this idea of going to trade fairs and rocking up to people and saying hello takes a bit of courage. But when you've done it, like going to those trade shows has got me actual work. So it is beneficial. And I think in the way that I coach, I'm quite gentle. I'm not afraid to challenge, but I'll do it in a gentle way. And everything that I do in my practice and my life, I try to maintain that gentleness if I can. And just keeping aware of when whatever the quality is that's important to you is managed and looked after, so you don't start becoming somebody who you don't want to be because of the pressures of building that business. Yeah. But I'd encourage anyone to go for it. If you've been thinking about it for a while and you've got the means to go and do it, give it a go. Or if it's not the right time right now, think about how and when it could be and start making some preparations for it, because life's too short to keep doing something that you're not enjoying when you think there might be something better out there for you.
That's fantastic advice. And I think most other coaches will say you have to persist at least for the first couple of years. It's not a quick magic wand. But Sally, you've been a fantastic guest. You have such a lot of integrity and honesty. So I hope people will pick up on that. And if there's anybody out listening there who's in the field, that you've sort of perked their ears that would like a really great coach. Yeah. So would you like to tell people how to reach you, Sally, if you've got a website or LinkedIn?
Well, thanks, Maxine, firstly, for the opportunity. It's been lovely talking to you. And yeah, if people would like to find out a little bit more about me, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name's Sally Twisleton. Obviously, my name will be in the notes. Or I've got a website, which is www.assemblecoaching.com. Or you can email me at hello@assemblecoaching.com. So lots of ways to get in touch. And obviously, like I said, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so you can just drop me a message on there as well.
Yeah, thank you. I can see why you chose that name for your website, being an engineer and now a coach. That's quite a clever... I don't know if I got that, but that seems like a...
That's exactly it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Thank you ever so much, Sally. It's been lovely having a chat with you. And thank you for all the different bits of advice you've given through your conversation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another podcast by the Association for Coaching. For over 20 years, our purpose has been to inspire and champion coaching excellence, advance the coaching profession, and make a sustainable difference to individuals, organisations and society. To find out more about the AC and our member benefits, follow us on LinkedIn or visit our webpage at associationforcoaching.com. Explore our digital learning hub and enjoy our extensive library of on-demand webinars, signature programs, member benefits, interviews, podcasts and a portfolio of live events featuring thought leadership, tools, models and the latest industry trends to help you develop your coaching expertise.